Okay, so the Big Ten yesterday announces no non-conference games. If we play, we're going to play 10 conference games. What's your reaction to that news?
Well, it was not unexpected among other athletic directors and administrators at the other leagues. What was a surprise is the timing of the announcement. Everyone thought the Big Ten was going to make this announcement next week. So people are wondering within the industry why the urgency for the Big Ten to come out and make this announcement yesterday. And what it does now is I think the Power 5 leagues have said they wanted to come out with a plan for the fall season together, whatever that would be. Conference only plus one or two non-conference games, 12 games, we're delaying the season, whatever that's going to be. And the timeline was around end of July, August 1st. However, with the Big Ten coming out with this news, what it does now is it kind of boxes everybody else in. And so I don't think you're going to see any teams play 12 games this year in Power 5 or the Group of 5 leagues, because now you simply don't have the inventory out there. When you take the Big Ten off the table, the Pac-12, because of their geographic challenges out there on the West Coast, it's going to be hard for them, and they were leaning towards going conference only anyway. I've been told it's likely the ACC would go conference only, plus they have Notre Dame, which they will kind of take under their wing and make sure Notre Dame has enough games. So now, if you're the SEC, the Big 12, for you to get 12 quality games, there simply aren't enough teams out there. So that was my biggest takeaway yesterday with the Big Ten announcement.
Brett, is there a money factor as well? Just the whole idea. Doug brought this up at the top of the show about not paying the other schools that you normally usher in the big paydays to come in and get beat up on. Is this part of it?
I don't really think so, because the Big Ten, they can afford to pay these schools to come in and pay them $1 million or more to come in. That's not an issue. Certainly, they're going to lose money because if those games are played and the stadium is only a fourth full because of COVID, you're going to lose money. But I don't think that's the biggest thing. I think the biggest thing is that the Big Ten, and I think other conferences feel this way, especially at the Power 5 level. If you're a Big Ten conference school and your safety guidelines say range from 1 through 50, and you got to go through all these different steps, now you're playing a team from another conference, and maybe their guidelines are only 1 through 25. Do you really want to put your student athletes, in that situation where the opponent you're playing doesn't go through the same safety guidelines that you do? And so I think that was the bigger thing. As a conference, they can control everything as far as testing, different guidelines and safety measures, so they know everybody's playing. It's apples to apples comparison. But when you step outside of conference, especially if you step down and play a Group of 5 school who don't have the financial means to test as frequently and do all these other things, then it's a big question mark. I think that's a bigger thing. But one last thing with the money, I think that will play a big part on how many conference games these teams play. As a conference, they will sit there and get with their TV partners and say, okay, if we play 8 conference games, it's worth X amount of money. What if we play 9? It's worth this much. What if we play 10? It's worth this much. And that will play a big role in determining how many conference games these guys play going forward. That is, if we do actually get to have a college football season.
All right, let's get to that big question. When is the forgive the phrase? When is the drop dead date?
Doug, there really isn't one. Technically they could run it up until right before kickoff and then say, look, we're pulling the plug. But they did want to determine or make some type of announcement by August 1st. And say, look, here is the plan. We're going forward with the 12-game schedule. Look, we're going to pause. They even don't want to call it delay because that's negative. They want to say we're taking a pause. We're taking a pause. We're going to move the season back and start the last week of September, whatever it is. They wanted to do that around August 1st to the end of July. So I think at that time, that's when we'll have a better definitive idea from all these other conferences. And certainly the Big Ten also, they've got to figure out what schedule they're going to do. Just because they're going conference only doesn't mean they pick up the schedule as is. Several ADs in the Big Ten told me, look, we've got to change our conference schedules up just because of the dates and different challenges of, multiple open days between conference games and different things. And so I think everyone would hope to do it by August 1st because that way you could get TV on board, certainly for planning purposes and those sort of things. But look, they were planning to play the NCAA basketball tournament until they weren't, and I think that's going to be the same thing with college football.
Yes, but it's much more of it's a much bigger ship with all of the
absolutely
right,
yeah.
like and like Rob pointed out, he's adjunct professor at USC. They're going mostly online, which signifies SC, a major school, a player in college football, saying we're not going to have students on campus. That's one of the big warning signs that we won't have college football. So. Okay, I guess best guess, where are we as of today? Again, I know it's a fluid situation. We're at July 10th. Do we have college football?
I think they're going to try like hell to do it, and I think we may start out playing college football. I don't think we finish the season just because, as you've seen recently, Ohio State shut down workouts, North Carolina, Kansas, all over the country because of the positive spikes. And the one thing you did mention about USC and the online classes, the commissioners have kind of, I don't want to say they found a loophole, but they have kind of characterized that by saying we need to have some students on campus for our student athletes to play football. Well, some could be 100, some could be 1,000. We don't have to have 20,000 students on campus is what they're saying. So they've got to try to play because of the financial implications if they don't. Look, back in April, I said, I hope I'm wrong. I said, I don't think we're going to have a season because I didn't think the university presidents would allow all these students back on campus. They've kind of changed that where they don't need all the students back on campus. But ultimately, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think we end up having a season, Doug. I hate that. If it's not safe enough for kids to come back on campus and take a class together in a room, then how's it safe to play football?
Wait, guys, and Rob, I'm not trying to cut either of you guys off.
Go ahead.
Can anyone point to any sort of statistics that say that, right? Like the fear is not for the student athletes. The fear, one, is obviously litigation, but the fear is for everybody else, the professors, who could, or a regular student who could have some pre-existing health conditions that a student athlete wouldn't have. There isn't any. I've yet to been shown any sort of statistical sign that an athlete would actually be at substantial risk.
No, I agree. I'm not saying they would or would not. I'm just saying that it seems like people right now, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but people are not comfortable with if people are positive with the disease of going forward. But it's funny where they're like, well, these universities are saying it's not safe for us to have 50 students in a classroom, but it is safe for our university to play football. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying how can one be okay and the other can't be okay? Shouldn't both be okay or shouldn't both be not okay? So that's ultimately, getting back to your question, why I think we don't have a season, because there's so many different things like that. And you nailed something a second ago that people aren't going to talk about. It's all about litigation and how not to get sued. And that's their biggest concern with these university presidents is, they don't want to be hit with multiple lawsuits. And so is it better to take a huge chance, which most of the time university presidents do not like to take a lot of chances, or B, take the safe way, and basically if that means, cancel the season and wait till next year, then try to navigate the financial implications and try to live to fight another day to make it into a bad analogy.
I look at this and I want to know, if we don't have college football this season, and I'm closer to you, Brett, what damage will this do? Like, do you see some college football programs going away forever? Like, well, what will be the damage if there is no football season?
Yeah, Rob, you're right. You're going to see the smaller group of 5 schools that could drop football almost overnight if you don't have a football season either in the fall or in the spring. I've done a couple of surveys for Stadium where I reached out to all 130 athletic directors asking them about their optimism for the season. I remember back in April I asked all the ADs, and a couple of them were very blunt, but it stuck with me. And they said, "Look, Brett, if we don't have any football for this upcoming academic year," he goes, "we are bleaked." And that's the reality of it. And that's the biggest fear, is if you don't have these TV deals, if you don't have the revenue coming in from the attendance and the donations and everything else that factors in, these schools and universities are going to make some hard decisions. And that's why you've seen a lot of schools already dropping Olympic sports, and certainly, Stanford becoming the first Power 5 school to cut Olympic sports recently.
Brett, awesome stuff. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the Dan Patrick Show.
Thanks, guys. Anytime.
That's Brett McMurphy from Stadium Sports. Okay, so Rob, let's dive a little bit deeper in here. I understand the fear that people have. I don't think it's reasonable fear. Like, there's a reasonable fear, if your kid goes, riding his bike, if you don't, that somebody's not paying attention or he's not paying attention, you put on a bike helmet. I'm wondering if it's reasonable fear that keeps us from having a college football season.
Yes, that is the reason. And I think it's reasonable, Doug, because we don't know, because it's uncharted waters, because what happens if yes, you just go willy-nilly and you don't take these precautions, and kids on football teams come down with the virus and kids start dying and football players start dropping dead. Then people will go, "Oh my God,
Rob, show me any sort of stat that says people that age are in danger." Like, here's the crazy part. Football is a really dangerous game. You're far more likely to actually die from playing football than it appears to die from the coronavirus to this point. Like, again, people of their age with their type of athletic acumen.
But Doug, the difference is,
go ahead.
The difference is, when this first started, it was about older people and people with immune
deficiencies,
underlying conditions,
sure,
medical conditions. That's what it was. Oh, yeah, everybody else, if you're healthy, you'll be just fine. And then all of a sudden, states relaxed their regulations on it, and all these young people went out and partied and did all the other stuff at the beach or whatever. And now, I don't know about you, when I drive past these medical facilities in L.A., there are lines of young people standing out there trying to get seen by a doctor or get tested because they have it. And the point is, from saying that they weren't going to be affected from the beginning, that's changed. So now we don't know if the longer this goes on, now maybe some of these young people start dying from it. It's not like young people haven't died from it. All I'm saying is, I'd rather be safe than sorry, because we don't know. I remember when the pandemic first started, they told people that you didn't have to wear a mask. Do you remember that?
No.
Yes.
No, I don't remember that.
They said that you didn't have to wear a mask, that it was optional, and basically, because I know the first week or so of this whole thing, I wasn't wearing a mask. I was listening to people, and they were talking about people who were susceptible to it, that they needed to protect themselves, and that's changed. All I'm saying is, it's a slippery slope. It changes all the time, and football is not that essential in life to give up a season to make sure that people are safe. That's all.
Football is not essential in life. That is an absolute. That's a fact. The difference is, though, it is incredibly essential. Like, we talk about essential businesses all the time. Right? Talk about essential business all the time. Like, I mean, Brett McMurphy just said how bleak it will be for college athletics, and frankly for universities, but especially for college athletics if football doesn't exist. And I'm telling you, if you don't have college football and you don't have college football with fans, it's bleak for those college towns. That's where they make all of their money, right? There's a reason they have homecoming games. There's a reason that they have all of these alumni events. Like, all of this stuff generates gobs and gobs of money for not just the university, but for the towns that the university occupies. And if you take students away from the campus already, then you take incoming fans away. Like, those college towns are going to be in despair. And we're not even talking about the entire athletic departments, which we think of in a linear fashion. Oh, is football essential? No, you're right. Okay. But athletics and athletic departments provide the second most number of scholarships of any program in the history of the United States, only to the GI Bill. Like, this is, like, to me, a bunch of the discussion about the racial disparity in economics in this country come down to the differences in the type of schools that you can go to and the ability, opening up new doors that didn't previously exist for previous generations. That's what athletics provides. And we be taking that away from a substantial number of young people, in addition to the economics of the college towns, which again would take away opportunities for young people. So I think there's more to it than just a linear fashion of looking at it. Do we need football or do we not need football? Should the college football coaches get paid or not get paid? Like, that is just a fraction of the actual story here. And I'm like, look, I almost think, the problem is that everyone just fears getting sued, right? Like, that's ultimately what probably brings down football in high school athletics, is at some point somebody's going to have a class action lawsuit, and high school can't insure their high school football teams, and it probably goes away. And you play flag football in high school. That's likely what goes away in some of these states. But that's what's happening to college football. They don't actually fear the virus hurting anyone on that roster. You're getting way better testing more often, because it's super expensive, and you're getting better medical care if you do pop up positive than you could possibly get at home. But the problem is that on the off chance that one person not only carries it, but then carries it home to a family member or pass it along to somebody, and it comes back around to, well, the university is liable here. That's when a lawsuit comes down, and that's when it becomes a house of cards. That's the real fear. And I'm not trying to make lawyers out to be bad people, but litigation is the fear, not the actual reasonable possibility that this can kill any number of college football players.
I think it's a combination. I get the legal part of it, Doug. I do understand that when you're a university and there's money that somebody could sue and get from you, so I get that part of it. But I do think there's a responsibility to also make sure you're not putting kids in harm's way for the wrong reason. And I think the wrong reason is to collect TV money and money for your football program when it's not safe. If fans can't go into the stands, right, and you're asking maybe fans to sign a waiver to come watch a football game, that's telling you that you believe that there's a chance that something bad can happen and that you would be held responsible or liable. So if that's the case, if fans can't go there and kids can't go on campus to sit in classrooms, how can guys being on top of each other, exchanging sweat and spit, make sense and make you feel like, oh, there's nothing wrong with us trying to play football? I think that they know that there is a big risk in it.